a demonstration for the food preservation of the fair, and I've worked in that a couple years and given some demonstrations and also entered things and won lots of prizes. It's just been awesome. I love, love, love preserving food. So shall I go ahead and say my name and just get started?
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. I am Carrie Brooks. I've been on San Juan Island for 33 years. I used to live in Friday Harbor for 29 years, but I hope to have some fun today learning on how to do various food preservation techniques. And I know from San Juan Island, the native peoples used to go out to the point, down in Cattle Point area, and they would spend the whole summer there preserving their berries that they got and the salmon that they caught and the oysters that they harvested, and they would do it with smoke, with the sunshine that was really pretty good out there also they would just get everything they could, and they could grow things. They could grow some grain and vegetables and so on. So that's how they preserved. But they didn't have a choice. They had to, or they died. They starved. And so we have a choice today to preserve or not to preserve. And I want to show you why preserving is so important. When you preserve food, you are taking something that costs you a little bit, maybe, or maybe you got it for free, and you're getting it at an actual lower price than when you will use it, maybe up to 2 years later. And so you're saving money, you're feeling good about yourself because maybe you got something on sale and you've got a whole bunch of them. Like I'll buy several roasts if they're on sale and then cut them up and preserve them, can them. And we'll be doing all of that, and I'll be doing some demonstrations for you. And so I have one bag that has my mouse for this. I don't know where it got to, but anyway, we'll not worry about that. I'll just do it as we go along here. The different processes I'm going to show today are canning. You use a pressure canner, and it has a little bit of water in it or a lot of water in it. The pressure canner you can use as a canner, water bath canner. You don't have to buy a separate water bath canner. I just bought a new electric stove, and it has the flat top rather than the rings. And you have to be careful on those stoves. And I had to get all new pans and everything because my pans had ridges on them, and you can't have ridges. So my water bath canner had all those ridges around, a big blue thing, spotted blue. And now it is a planter. I can't use it anymore. And so what I'm doing is putting in my new little baby plants in this big planter, and with all the dirt and the healthy dirt, and I'm putting in baby plants that I've started in my kitchen window from such things as, where's my celery? I don't think I unloaded everything yet. Here we go. When you have celery at the very bottom of your celery, by the way, I keep my celery in tin foil because it lasts longer. And so when you have a bunch of celery, you cut off the big end, which I already did, the root end. Cut it off, make the whole thing maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches, and then you take toothpicks. You have that end, and you stick toothpicks at every quarter, about halfway up, and so that the toothpicks are sticking out. Then you take a little cup of some kind. I have some little teacups that I don't use, and you fill that with water, and you stick that plant in there. And within 2 days to a week, you will have tiny little celery leaves coming up from the middle of that. It's a brand new plant, free food, because I bought the celery at the store originally, but I ate all that except for the root. So instead of throwing it away, I put it in this little jar. And the roots grow down, the plants start growing up, and when they get about 2 inches tall or so, I move them. I transplant this watered thing that I've changed the water every other day on to keep it clean, and I put it into my planter, my soil that's on my deck, or if it's in the wintertime, I just do it near the windows, and some planter that you're putting it in. And if it's going to be celery, you better have a big one. I have one on my deck that's only about this big, the planter itself wide. And this thing's trying to grow, and it just can't do it because there's not enough soil. So I put my next one that I did in a great big planter, and it's probably this tall right now, and bushy, really bushy. It doesn't look like they look like in the store because it's real wide, but I'm getting free food. I've done that with onions. In fact, one of my onions had twins, which was really great. It had two little eyes in the center of it, and so it came up, and these were twins stuck together. And that was really fun to see. You can do it with garlic, you can do it with onions, you can do it with cabbage, you can do it with broccoli, and sometimes you just get the leaves, but that's okay. The leaves are great. By the way, if you happen to plant seeds yourself, and you get a bunch of let me see, what is the name of that plant? The little round ones that have roots. Anyway, the leaves usually have about 15 to 16 times more vitamin C in it than the roots have, than the root plant has. And so radishes, that's what I'm trying to think of, radishes. If you're growing these little red radishes, little cherry radishes or something, any kind of radish, the greens will grow up first. You know what you can do with those? Who would think? You're getting 16 times more vitamin C than the radish itself. The roots you can clip off about, maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches high from the base, and because they grow up pretty tall, and they make wonderful salads. They have this smooth, peppery flavor. They're just wonderful in salads, or you can boil them up in greens. And so I've planted tons of radishes because I'm not a radish fan, but I so. And did you know that Brussels sprouts have leaves on the bottom, around the first 6 inches of the Brussels sprouts as the thing is growing up? You take those leaves and they make wonderful salad greens, just wonderful. Brussels sprouts are the first frost in October, the end of October. You can cut them, leave the stalk about 3 inches high, and you can cut them and harvest everything, but you have to do it after the first frost because then they're sweeter. They're not so bitter, Brussels sprouts. But that was on the original 4 Brussels sprout plants that I did for the first time in my life. I'm just new at this, but I'm having so much fun. It's just amazing. But anyway, let me get back to the canning process here. Canners have to have a good pressure holder, provider here, because, and you want to have, for most things that are not acidic, if you're using it like a water bath canner, and you're just doing berries or canning something that has acid in it, you can just use it as a water bath canner. You don't have to use the pressure. You just boil it for 20 minutes. And you fill the water line all the way up to about 1/2 inch above the lid's tops. Excuse me. Then what's inside is one of these little doohickeys, and they kind of hold the jars together, but honestly, they make my jars tip, so I don't like it. I'll just get rid of that. I just keep it for show. This is what I use in mine. It keeps the jars off of the bottom of the pot and flat inside, so I can put my jars down in, like my quart jars, my green beans here. I can them, and they'll last for years and years.
Carrie, why is it important to keep the jars off the bottom of the pan?
Because if the bottom of the pan is like the top of your stove when it gets hot, and it'll make them crack. And you don't want a mess inside of your canner. I've had that happen before. So you have this little
Like
shelf. That's exactly right. And it has holes in it so that you've got air can come up through and bubbles can come up through and so on. So you're not, but it has 1/4 inch off of the bottom. So that's good. Now this canner, this pressure canner happens to be flat pretty much on the bottom, the size of my new stove. So I'm going to try to use it. I haven't used it yet this year, but I'm going to try to use it and see if it holds. But anyway, if you're canning something like meats or vegetables, you need to have at sea level at least 10 pounds of pressure. So I have these little sections on this pressure gauge that I can take off. Each one is for 5 pounds of pressure. So I've got a total of 15 pounds pressure available, but we don't need usually that much. I haven't found anything, I don't think, that I need the 15 for. But anyway, that you let the steam go up for about 10 minutes and you only have about 2 to 3 inches of water in the bottom. Different from can or bath, water bath. Water bath, you're letting the water be the cooker of it all. And for a pressure canner, you're letting the pressure be the cooking element that you want. So that's what this is for right over here. And it's really easy to work with. You always want to stay in the room when that is cooking. You don't ever want to leave it alone. You may have an explosion. Otherwise, you've always got to check the canner. And mine is, it wobbles. This pressure gauge wobbles when the steam is at the right pressure. You wait about 10 minutes for it to just let a lot of air out, and then you put this on and it'll start wobbling. And when it wobbles just easily back and forth at the same speed, you know you've got your temperature right, because you turn your temperature off of high at that point down to a medium and you let it cook. And let the pressure do its thing for about 90 minutes for meats and certain vegetables like potatoes and things like that. Okay, now this, let's see, is there anything? Oh, canning. Then when you have your processed, your food is processed, you need to have this jar lifter. Very important, because if you don't get something that is going to really hook onto your jar, you're going to have trouble getting them out. And you just put it on there and lift it right out, set it onto a towel and let it set there for about a day, 24 hours or so. And you want the rings on. This is the ring and this is the lid. The ring you want to use on the jars when they go into the canner and for approximately the next day, maybe 2 days. After that, you actually can, well, if they're sealed, and in the center here, there's a little bubble. And if the bubble's up, that means it's not sealed. If the bubble goes in, you know it's sealed. And so you tap it. If it has a dull sound, you're not going to have a seal. If it has, but the next day, or if the bubble is up, you won't have a seal. But if it's down, it'll have a different clicking sound. The sound's really important. And so, but you can take the lids, the rings off, because you want to know if it's going to spoil. Someday you might be hearing in your cupboard or wherever you keep these, pop, and you know someplace in your 100 jars. And things that scare me are meats and beets. Onions and potatoes can be really dangerous too, but beets and meats scare me. I know a lot of people pickle them, and I think that's the only way I might even try that type of thing. But I have canned beets before, because I do grow beets for the greens. Again, I like the beets, but I love the greens. And you can get 3 cuttings, by the way, off of your radishes or your beets or your lettuce or whatever. Cut it down. I grow it fairly close together. Lettuce is fairly close together, especially, or any greens, so that I can just grab a handful, cut it off, and within 1 to 2 weeks, you've got another batch ready to go. Cut it off. You've got your lettuce greens for your salads or boiling, whatever you're going to do with them. And I've been able to get 3 cuttings, and then it starts thinning out, and usually the season's over anyway for spinach and lettuce and these type of things. They like cool weather. Unless you're going to do a fall crop, then you can plant some more and do it again. Okay, so canning. I hope I covered everything on there. Let me show you. I've got applesauce here that I made from apples. I do all kinds of things with apples because we have some apple trees, which is really nice on the property. And I have chicken vegetable soup. Now, this was because I found a deal on chicken. And so I put it in the freezer, and I decided, wait a minute, this has been in the freezer a while, and over 6 months, and I thought, I need some chicken soup. And so I made a big vegetable soup in the canner. In the canner itself. And I made it, and then I cleaned it out after I cooked it, and used it for dinner, and then put the remainder in jars and canned them in the canner. And I've been eating on some that I had in 18, and this is 21, so it's been 3 years. I suggest, even though you can, this is still sealed, has that tight click sound, and always mark your jars, the date that you did them and what's inside of them. Always mark that. Chicken veggie soup, 12/9/19, this one is. So you can eat food, but if you do it in the first couple of years, you're going to get most of the nutrition. What happens is you lose nutrition value. Your stomach will feel full, but you are getting some nutrition, but get the most nutrition. You need to use them up in the first couple of years. Here's the problem with rubber sealers on the lids. The lids have this rubber around the edges. Rubber deteriorates after 7 years. If you have rubber tires, they say get them changed every 7 years because they can blow on you. Well, these can fail. They don't a lot of times. They've never failed on some people for years and years and years, 10, 15 years later on some things. But I'm just a little bit leery of these. So if you have something that's over 5, if it's safe, go ahead and eat it. And you won't have as much nutrition. But what they've found nowadays is the best thing for keeping the nutrition is a freeze dryer. I don't have a freeze dryer because they cost like $4,000. And so I haven't decided to invest that. But I would freeze them. Everything I had. I would freeze ice cream. I would freeze everything because they keep the nutrition in. And at 2 years, it's no different than when they first did the veggies or the fruits. There's a medicine out. It's not a medicine really. It's a supplement that you can get that is all vegetables and fruits. And you take like 6 vegetable fruit and 6 fruit capsules a day that have this freeze-dried food inside of it that they've ground up really fine, and they do it in certain amounts so you know exactly how much you're getting and how much nutrition. It's really helping people because it's like eating the fresh food, which you could never get that amount. And I definitely couldn't get that amount every single day into my diet, but you can with these. So freeze drying, if you can afford it, that's the way to go. Just do it. And everything you could freeze dry, literally everything. Now, I have a fun one that I wanted to show you. This is corn cob jelly. I think there's probably only 10 people in the world that have made this every year, but I one year got a couple years ago, 2019, got a deal on corn cobs that the corn had come off. I'd carved the corn off so I could dehydrate it. Or first of all, you have to, for corn, if it's not already blanched, you have to blanch it in hot water for 3 minutes. Now, blanching just means you're going to get it to stop the deterioration process. You're stopping all the chemical reactions that go on after it's opened up and cut off. And so you do that for 3 minutes, and then you can freeze it or dehydrate it. However, I buy corn, rather than just doing it from corn cobs, yeah. I buy it frozen from the store, and sometimes you can get a really good deal. Like I would get 5 for $5. Well, that's 5 bags. Each, I didn't tell you, this is my dehydrator. And it is a Garden Master dehydrator. And I have different kinds of nets to go over top, or I'll show you this later, to go over top of the rack itself. And each rack will hold 1 bag this size. It might be harder to get the bigger bag all on, but I'll show you how. Can you see me? I'll show you how it just is so quick and so easy. Or if you've got these bags in your freezer and it's been a year and you haven't used them yet, and you want to keep them, you don't want to eat them right away, this is shelf here, a nice holder for it, and it makes one, and you're kind of pushing them down. Always have clean hands, by the way. These are going to go in the garbage later. But always have clean hands, clean utensils, clean and sterile containers. Everything you're working with should always be clean. Your counters, everything clean, because you're going to keep this for a long time, and you don't want any bugs inside there, any type of pathogen or anything. So you set that on the dehydrator, and it looks like this, and it's still frozen. It will be perfect tomorrow, the next day. And it'll come out looking like, let me find the one, the corn. Dehydrated corn is over here somewhere. Let's see. Oh, the little one here. Okay. It'll come out looking like this. This is probably one shelf worth. And this is dried frozen corn. That's what I wrote on this. So you want to use these up in a couple of years, because they've already gone through a process that of being in the freezer for 6 months or so, and so you want to, use them up so you've got some nutritional value. But let me tell you, there's nothing better for a snack than dried corn, unless it is, if I can find them, let's see, I'm looking for my dried green beans. Well, I don't know where I put them, but anyway, dried green beans are the next best thing. They're just like candy. And so for a good snack, right here. Okay. They're little tiny. This is probably 2 packages right here. And I don't know if you can see inside at all, but they are they're the cut green beans. They're not the slivered. They're the cut green beans. They're not the French style. And they just are a little tiny piece, and they're so good. They're just, and literally I can snack on these, and they're good for me. So that's what we use. Now, this is how the dried corn comes out from a dryer like this. And I also have the green beans, and we're going to see how that fits on a tray also here. And one package. You want to smooth them out so that they're not doubled up too much. They're sort of like one layer. They'll be okay. They shrink a lot, so they'll be okay eventually. But you just smooth them out. It's that simple to take your frozen vegetables from your freezer, which is another food preservation technique, freezing. And always get the air out of every bag. If you put it in, if you're canning it, you're freezing it yourself, and you're doing it in a baggie like this, always make sure, these are nuts, almonds, but make sure all of the air is out and seal it. Some people take a straw and stick it in and suck out the air. There are other things you can do, like use this machine, and we'll do that in a sample here in a minute with corn. So, okay, so we like 1/4-inch slices, or garlic, or anything really stinky. Even mint can be an overwhelming thing. You don't want that in your house. It's there forever. Or it'll be on your stuff forever. So I have 4 trays that I keep aside from all my others. They're for using to do the onions. Here's a bunch of Walla Walla onions that I dried. They're wonderful snacks too. They're just like the ones you get in the can for at Thanksgiving on them. So they're wonderful, and their flavor is sweet. These are sweet Walla Wallas, and I just cut them up in about not a 1/2 inch, but maybe a little bigger than a 1/4 inch slices, the best I can do, and put them on here on my designated trays, and then I can have wonderful onions anytime I want. I can have them for soups. I can also make my own onion powder. Here is onion powder. What you do is take these, put them in your coffee grinder or your blender, and if you've got just a little bit, put them in your coffee grinder. I usually have more than that, and I have this blender that I make my smoothies with veggies and so on in the mornings. And these, use your coffee grinder or whatever, make your own onion powder, or make your own garlic powder. You can do all kinds of things and make your own recipes. Then you can bag up or can up then you can put it in your own, you can have a mixture. Like if you have certain seasonings that you work with all the time, like an onion soup mix or just any kind of spice. You can add different spices to it, some that you've purchased, because sometimes cinnamon and stuff, I don't think you'd want to use you could use your coffee grinder, I guess, on them, but you can make your own spices with your own style of cooking. And then you don't have to buy them anymore, because you have taken onions, hopefully that you've grown. That's why it's good to have a garden, because you can save quite a bit of money, although it takes work and it does take time, but I think it's worth it. And you feel so good when you get your hands in that dirt. You just feel good. I don't know what it is about it. And so I have, let's see, and the last process then, we have the canning. You can do that, and you can make jellies. Have the dehydrator that you can dry your food, which you can eventually grind up to make powders. You can also, oh, I didn't tell you, I'm going to go back, forgive me. The corn cob jelly, there were only like 10 people, I think, in the nation that are using it, but because it's really labor intensive, but it was fun. And you only get like 3-4 jars, but the longer you have it, the more like honey it tastes. After the first year, I opened it up, and it had a corn type taste to it. This year, I opened it up, and it was like honey, sort of a little tangy, sweet honey. It was just wonderful. It looks like honey too, but for something different, or for giving as a to somebody that has everything, this is really unique. Corn, and you cook it all night, just about a long time, until you've cooked down water, the corn cobs, 15 corn cobs in your canner, and you just cook it and cook it and cook it and cook it, and eventually you get a good broth. You're kind of like making bone broth, but you're making corn broth out of it, and then you turn that into jelly with pectin and things like that, and sugar, just like you would with a regular jelly making with berries. But it's good and it's unique. Now I want to show you how we use this. Did we get it plugged in yet? The cord for the, let's see, can I have the extension cord here? I want to try just one jar on a dehydrator, on the dryer rather, the food dryer. How far is your cord? Let's see, I can pull it over here, that'll work. That's good. Okay, thank you.
In here. There we go.
Okay, I'm going to show you how to dehydrate, take dehydrated food. That's where you want to keep your nuts. They're good for a couple years in there, but if you've had them in there a little too long, or you don't want to put them in the freezer, you want to do or whatever nuts you have, and use your little funnel to keep the nuts from going everywhere, and that's what you use all the time to can. Fill it up. Whoops, don't want to fill it too full because it won't seal if it's too full. Shake it a little bit, shake it down. Okay, so it's up to almost the top ring, but the second ring is better to have for that. But okay, I put on my lid, and I put on my clean lid, and I put on my ring. Now I take this machine, Ah, it's working, good. And I pull out this funny looking little thing. It's the air sucker. And I have these two lid tops that are going to facilitate this process. I stick it into the top hole. There's a hole in there. I just stick it right into that top. Take a cloth and wipe it. Wipe it clean so it will seal. Then I put this on top, and until I feel that it's solid, and you kind of hear a click. All right, then I push this one button. Listen. We're hearing two things at once. We hear the clicky pop. My cell phone went off, and also the click on this. Did you hear that click? It goes pop. That means that it's sealed. So I take this off gently, and look, it's sealed. It's not coming off. So I will mark it as the date. I won't this. We're taking it home to eat it, but and this is the date. And let me tell you something about nuts. I was shocked. A couple weeks ago, I got out some pecans that I had put in jars, and it was a pint jar, about 5 years ago with this machine. Now, I would think, because those nuts, I'd forgotten about it. It was clear in the back of the shelf. I hadn't reorganized properly to bring the older stuff forward. And I would have thought, and this is what I thought when I started to taste it, I thought, the fat in nuts is going to taste rancid. There was no rancid smell, so I thought, I'm going to taste it. It was sweet and wonderful, just like a fresh pecan. 5 years later, I was shocked, absolutely shocked. So I'm going to do more nuts this way now. I've just been putting them in the freezer for a couple of years. I don't think you have to do that. I think you can use this machine to seal it up in these, and it'll keep. I'm not saying that every nut will be the same, but I know with pecans, it was wonderful. They were just sweet, just like I just put them in there. So I'm an enthusiast for this machine. I love using these two machines. They're my favorite, dehydrators and this. Now, one little hint here. You can, if you're very careful, when you open it, and not to dent it, which I got a little dent, but we're going to try something here. Let's say you had a tiny, tiny bit of celery leaves and you left in there, and you didn't want to waste them, so you wanted to reseal them. But I'm going to use this as the sample instead. You can take a lid you've used. I can do this 1 or 2 times sometimes. But I always watch it because I'm not 100% and I like safety. So it's better to use a new lid every time, but sometimes you can't find lids. But anyway, for sealing them up dry like this, we're going to try and see if this lid that I just used will work again. So I pushed it down all the way, and let's listen this time. Whoops. Okay, why am I there? It's pop. I heard the pop. And there's a pop also when you lift this out. Swish sort of sound. Look. It's sealed. So it is okay to use a lid on this type of thing twice. Never use a lid double on jellies or on anything you have canned, such as green beans, anything like that. Always use a fresh lid. Always. Applesauce, anything like that. Now, I can show you, I have a couple things I can show you. I did potato slices. I have this unique machine, and I don't know if I can get to do it here for you or not, there's not much room. This is called an apple peeler corer slicer. One of my handiest things in my kitchen. I use it every week, at least once. It has a little suction thing that now is, look there, see that? It's moving it to the top. It's suction, I push it down, I take my apple like that, or potatoes. I peel potatoes more often than I do apples on this. In the summer, I'm doing tons of apples, and I do apple slices. Very simple. You can do apple slices with this thing, and peel it, or you can do it just plain by cutting your apple in quarters like that. And the core is in square. It's sort of a square rectangle shape. Just throw it away, and then you just slice up your apples. And dried apples are the best thing ever. In fact, I heard that if you leave the skin on with red apples, if you leave the skin on, you're getting some phytonutrients that are really good for you. And so if I have red apples, then I've been leaving them on lately. And these taste wonderful. I've had these for over 5 years, and they are just great to taste. So anyway, I'm going to put an apple on just to show you, and hopefully it'll work. This is the most fun thing. It's going to make a mess, and I'll put a bowl below it. That's what I brought it for. Right below here. Okay, we'll see if it works. All right, and I better hold it down right here. On my counter, the suction makes it work really well. But you can get these in drugstores or Walmart or wherever, but I think they're the best invention if you get a real fresh apple, and maybe this apple isn't going to be fresh. Probably not, because I wanted it to be, but we'll see here. You put your potato or your apple on top of it, go real fast like that. There we go, and it peels that peeling right off. Now, if you're doing potatoes, and you can set this peeler part to make them thicker or thinner in depth. And if you do potatoes, you can take those potatoes and do the whole potato, and you can fry those up, and they're wonderful. Potato rings. And apple rings, you could batter the rings. You could batter them and fry them up, and they'd be great too. Okay, then, but I didn't put the corer on this time. So see this, it peeled it, but it didn't core it. So that's what you would do with a potato. You leave the corer, which is over here right now, you leave it off. Now, if I wanted to use the corer, I would unscrew this. It would pop up to here. It would pop up right here underneath this, and it would take the core, and it would just stick onto this. It would take the core and stick, and you wouldn't, and then all you have to do is go pong, one slice, and your entire apple is done. And it takes like 5 seconds. It's just an amazing thing. Saves you so much time. So I hope all of you will buy this. You do have to have an investment if you're going to can or preserve or dry or whatever you're going to do. But I've had these for years. I've had these for years. Now, you will love that. I just want to leave you with one fun thing that I'm going to show you. I make my own buttermilk. It's a way of preserving, right? Okay, I have with me today someplace, what's in this one, okay? Okay, I take a jar of water. Whoops. Got a leaker here. That's my starter buttermilk. That's some that I have saved, about 2 cups I've saved from a prior batch of buttermilk that I made, or it can be a couple of cups from what you've bought at the store. That's your initial starter. And I take a bunch of powdered milk to make milk in here, in this water. So I will take and pour out this, stir it up to taste where it tastes like milk, non-fat milk into water. And this is 1.5 quarts, so I've got about a quart here. But if you use a quart jar, you'd use less of this, and you'd use less water. And so you just make the milk to taste so that it tastes like powdered milk. And it's just regular room temperature water. Then you pour this inside of here and stir it up good, put it on the counter, don't touch it for 2 to 3 days. At the end of that time, this buttermilk will start to clabber. And clabber means it thickens up and gets little glumps in it. And when you do that, then you, when it clabbers after 2 to 3 days, you can look at it, and the longer you keep it there, the more sour it'll taste. It's absolutely wonderful, by the way. Then, so what I do is I get a bowl, a glass bowl. I don't know where it got to, and where's my, there it is, okay. I take a glass bowl and pour the clabbered buttermilk into it, and I stick it in the microwave for 7 minutes, or 6 minutes, and then an extra minute. And every minute and a half or so, I stir very gently, and as you stir, it will start separating between the whey and the curds. And after 6.5 minutes or 6 minutes, you can either take it out of the microwave if it's separating really well and you've got clear whey, or you can do it for 1 more minute or so and let it just sit there just for a minute. You don't want to cook too long because it'll get tough. And you end up with something in the bowl that you can pour into a colander like this, a real fine one, into your bowl, because you want to save your whey, because you can use the whey for making biscuits, for anything you use water for. Making breads, use your whey. It just gives a nice little flavor and an extra oomph to your bread, makes it, and so it ends up looking like this. After you strain it out of here, pour it just a little bit of salt over it to season it, to flavor it, and my little bowl I just had, well, I'll try to show you in this, oh, here it is. I'm going to pour it in this clear bowl so you can see it. I have cottage cheese. Miracle here. Look at this. This is sort of lumped together, but that is cottage cheese. It's called dry cottage cheese. Some people take this, then squeeze it together for a month under pressure and it'll turn into, it's called farmer's cheese. But I use this like for lasagna and anything I use cottage cheese for. And it's wonderful. And it keeps for about 3 weeks in the refrigerator. So it's great cottage cheese. I very seldom buy cottage cheese anymore because I don't buy buttermilk and I don't buy cottage cheese. So it saves me money. The whole deal about preserving is saving money and having fun. And if this isn't fun, I don't know what is. Because when I make biscuits, you know, I love, or cakes or cookies or anything, I use my whey that's left over and get good flavor. So I'm not wasting any of that. And I don't waste foods because I can save it by canning it if I have too much, or I can put it in the back room after it's canned. I just feel like I'm doing something good. And so I hope you guys will take some time, especially if you have some of these utensils already, and just have fun with canning, dehydrating, and preserving for long term. And it has good shelf life anyway too.
Do you have any information about entering in the fair, how people will do that this year, or should they keep watching for more information?
You'll have to watch, yeah. If I don't know how to enter. I didn't know how last year either. I tried to look and couldn't find it. So let's just keep watching the website that this is on, and we'll see. I also have a blog that I have pictures that I've taken, and I've typed out a bunch of things. Some of it I didn't share here yet today, or maybe it went too fast and you can have a little bit slower time to read it. But it should be on their website too. I think they're going to be putting it on. So my name's Carrie Brooks, and I just am so glad that you tuned in today. Thank you.